Good morning, everyone. My name is Roberto Pantaleon, and I have the honor to begin the presentation of the AFIS Advanced Leadership Development Program Action Learning Project named Leveraging AFIS Resources. First of all, I'm excited to be the first ALDP class to present in a webinar format with AFIS technology linking in our teammates stationed around the world. We will provide a discussion pod for questions at the end of our presentation. Next, I would like to introduce the research team members that made possible this project. Glenn Germain, International Services in Maryland. Mark Hall, Wildlife Services in Guam. Dr. Kelly Hope, Veterinary Services in Ohio. Elizabeth Pentico, Plant Protection and Quarantine, Michigan. Patrick McFall, Veterinary Services in Colorado. And last but not least, yours truly, Roberto Pantaleon, International Services in Haiti. As you can see, this is a very diverse team, and we are named the Purple Team by the ALDA staff. Introduction. AFIS uses reimbursable agreements to deliver its missions while collaborating with a diverse array of U.S. government agencies and international organizations. This mission-driven agreement focused on the unique technical and administrative skill set within AFIS to develop strategic relationships, provide economical interagency service, and capitalize on outstanding funding sources. Let's review the history of reimbursable agreements used by AFIS. The International Services Unit, IS, was established by AFIS in 1988, to enhance the agency animal and plant health mission around the world. Today, international cooperation and strategic international relationships play an essential role in AFIS strategy for protecting U.S. agriculture and natural resources. In 2007, IS created the International Technical and Regulatory Capacity Building Group, ITRCB, to coordinate all capacity building requests the agency receives from foreign partners. The current AFIS and IS strategic plan supports the help foreign countries to develop their plant and animal health capacity by offering expertise that help increase our partners' ability to safeguard their resources and trade safely. These collaborations include interagency agreements with other federal agencies and reimbursable agreements with other external organizations. ITRCB identifies several areas of improvement related to the agreement process. These improvement opportunities form the basis of this group project. The lack of awareness and uniformity result in missed opportunities for promoting AFIS. Objectives. Our objectives for this project were to examine reimbursable agreements and AFIS has with other federal agencies and external organizations, and to develop policy recommendations for the agency to promote the use of these agreements. The intent of this project is to clarify AFIS' legal authority to enter into these agreements with cooperators, receive and retain external funding, and increase awareness within AFIS on how these agreements support the agency mission. Present a range of cost recovery scenarios for external agreements that shows the diversity in current agency practices and the valuable experience they provide to the employees. Develop recommendations for AFIS management to promote these external agreements, thereby reducing resistance among some agency staff to enter into them. Issue guidance that helps AFIS employees develop and process external agreements more consistently and help maximize the recovery of costs. Now I pass the word to Dr. Kelly Hope to continue with the next part of this presentation.
Thank you, Roberto. Before starting, the team determined that the focus of our research and interviews would be on interagency agreements, cooperative service agreements, and technical service agreements. These will be referred to collectively as reimbursable agreements. collection of user fees, trust funds, and cooperative agreements have been omitted. The team determined that the best way to investigate our issue was to conduct a thorough review of existing USDA policies and interview key individuals from USDA identified as valuable sources of information. Team members conducted a search of existing policies, procedures, regulations, and memoranda representing the U.S. government and all APHIS programs. Specifically, the team's research focused on two key areas: APHIS authority to receive and retain external funding, and procedures currently in place to process reimbursable agreements. The initial list of candidates to interview was provided to us by our project liaison, Jessica Mahalingapa. Candidates represented APHIS programs in the USDA Foreign Agricultural Service, or FAS, who is identified as a key player in reimbursable agreements with foreign entities. The figure on the slide provides a breakdown of the number of interviewees by agency or program. In total, the team invested approximately 40 hours to interview 38 individuals. You will note that no individuals were interviewed from animal care, even though several were contacted. They are receptive to the idea, but are not currently entered into any reimbursable agreements. The team drafted a list of 10 questions to use when interviewing APHIS employees. The list of questions was slightly modified for interviewing FAS candidates. The questions focused on the following areas: desire of the individual to see APHIS enter into more reimbursable agreements, the benefits to APHIS of entering into reimbursable agreements, roadblocks encountered during the reimbursable agreement process, and advantages and disadvantages of the current reimbursable agreement process. Prior to starting each interview, the team members assured the interviewee that their thoughts and comments would remain anonymous. By doing this, we hope to encourage participation and candor in the discussion. I now will discuss the results obtained through our research of existing sources and informal interviews of targeted individuals. The team found 7 relevant authorities allowing APHIS to collect fees for services or enter into reimbursable agreements. The primary authorities are the Economy Act and APHIS's annual appropriations language. Specifically, the Economy Act authorizes APHIS to enter into agreements with other units within the same agency or another agency provided funds and personnel are available to provide the service is in the best interest of the United States, and the services cannot be provided through contract by a commercial enterprise. Annual appropriations language authorizes APHIS to fully recover the costs associated with providing technical assistance, goods, or services not covered by appropriated funds. The other acts depicted on the slide are program-specific authorities. APHIS's budget in fiscal year 2012 was $735 million to conduct its agency missions. Based upon figures the team received from various program sources, funding obtained through reimbursable agreements accounts for 11.5% of the total budget. Wildlife Services leads the agency in terms of the amount of funding received from external sources, with approximately 49% of their total funding coming by way of reimbursable agreements. One question the team asked of every interviewee was whether or not the individual would like to see APHIS enter into more reimbursable agreements with other entities. As shown by the red section on the screen, more than half of all interviewees responded yes and cited clear benefits to entering into these agreements, such as increased regulatory capacity of foreign countries, increased knowledge and skill sets of APHIS employees, and increased strength of APHIS reputation. The purple section highlights that 18% responded that reimbursable agreements should be entered with caution. Reasons for caution included concerns over augmenting appropriations and clashes between agreement activities and APHIS mission priorities. 29% of interviewees, the orange section, provided no response to the question when asked. Possible reasons for this are that they did not have a clear preference or did not perceive that they were the appropriate person to answer. Additional results relating to roadblocks, benefits, advantages, and disadvantages will be incorporated into our discussion on the coming slides. The next section provides more details gleaned from our research and interview data analysis. The team has divided the discussion into 5 major areas: communications, roadblocks, training, benefits to APHIS, and cost recovery. We also intend to provide a real-world example of how APHIS leverages external sources of funding through reimbursable agreements. The first area we plan to discuss is communications. A recurring theme from the interviews was that there is currently no clear policy statement from the APHIS management team demonstrating the authority to enter into reimbursable agreements or encouraging this activity. This has led to haphazard use of the reimbursable agreement by APHIS. Programs hesitate to produce these types of agreements without a clear policy statement. In addition, communication within programs using reimbursable agreements is inconsistent. Interviewees cited several areas where communication needs improved. One area is communication between the administrative staff processing the agreement and the technical staff conducting the work. Of importance to this group is the lack of communication on the administrative overhead associated with processing these agreements and improper coding of expenses and time and attendance sheets. Another area cited is communication between APHIS and the requesting entity, as evidenced by the interview quote on the slide. Oftentimes, statements of work need to be altered to accommodate the project or its cost. These changes need to be discussed and agreed upon by APHIS and the requester so that all parties are aware of how funds are being used and how the project is progressing. I now turn over the presentation to Ms. Elizabeth Pennico to continue our discussion.
Thank you, Kelly. And now on to discussing roadblocks that emerged in our interviews. Project interviews identified numerous sources of resistance, or roadblocks, surrounding APHIS work that is externally funded. To capitalize on reimbursable agreement opportunities, APHIS must address these areas of concern. Some of the roadblocks are technical, with identifiable solutions to improve knowledge and skills. Many more are adaptive in nature, requiring a refocusing of vision and embracing new business practices. Financial transactions often bring a high level of process detail, and reimbursable agreements are no different. Many interviewees felt the process was cumbersome, dissuading employees and programs from entering into these agreements. Roadblocks cited include inconsistencies amongst programs, loss of administrative personnel, confusion over which agreement type to use, and the complexity of agreements with the military. Another issue is the conversion to FEMI, the Financial Management Modernization Initiative. I think this is best summed up in this interviewee quote, "FEMI is difficult. The individuals that created it must not have been aware of reimbursable agreements." Most of these administrative hurdles are technical in nature and can be improved with training and experience. Foreign Agricultural Service, or FAS, is the intermediary for agreements with foreign entities. Generally, there is a significant lead time required to enter into agreements involving FAS, often leaving an unrealistic window of time on the back end to obligate monies received and/or provide measurable results. Another roadblock is the combined overhead of APHIS and FAS, which is currently over 34%. This is enough to deter some agreement solicitations. FAS is often more adept and flexible than APHIS at brokering agreements. However, in some instances, entering into agreements directly with foreign entities should be considered and has been done successfully. A different source of resistance comes from concerns about the legality and ethics of accepting fees for services, even though a standard legal and ethical review is part of the process. This may suggest institutional insecurity in this area. In the same vein, there is caution about using external funding for mission work based on a fear of angering Congress by accepting funds for work that may have been left intentionally unfunded. Some interviewees see externally funded agreements as problematic because they commit resources away from traditional program activities, including subject matter expert positions, which are not then backfilled. The phrase mission creep was heard, along with the suggestion that APHIS priorities were being managed externally. There does not appear to be clear understanding of when APHIS has an unfunded mandate or expertise, but not direct funding to carry it out. Additional resistance is identified in the view of external agreements as soft money, and concerns over funding programs or positions with soft money. But despite this, some interviewees expressed recognition that a variety of funding sources are necessary for APHIS to stay relevant. APHIS seeking to be more nimble in its collaboration with external funding entities requires changing traditional business practices. Change often invokes a fear of losing identities and values, which can cause resistance. Programs' perceptions of risk may put them outside their comfort zone as APHIS seeks to collaborate with new partners in new areas in already unstable times. But the benefits can outweigh the risks. For instance, IS's international technical and regulatory capacity building staff, even with appropriated money losses, was able to continue most of its capacity building courses by leveraging outside funding. Teaching APHIS programs to leverage external funding opportunities will require adaptive solutions that recognize the core identity values within APHIS and frames them in a new context. Training. I am now going to provide some discussion on training and learning opportunities to facilitate reimbursable agreements and overcome roadblocks. Many program staffs have a lack of confidence in initiating and administering agreements. There are also errors or omissions in the processing of agreements, as illustrated by the quote on the slide. These occur mostly in the establishment of overhead charges during technical negotiations and in the complete cost recovery of salaries and fees at the field level. The best fix for the knowledge gap is technical training. Increasing receptivity to external agreements requires an adaptation of APHIS culture. Adaptive changes are catalyzed by guiding leadership actions. An early step in the process is increasing the awareness of the benefits of reimbursable agreements. A forum is needed to showcase the diversity of mission work accomplished, the opportunities for technical and cultural employee enrichment, collaborative success of shared government missions, and, most importantly, the support this externally funded work has from APHIS management. We suggest the mode of storytelling for part of that first step. These stories may even highlight cultural transformations significant enough to be published in Secretary Vilsack's My USDA newsletter. And now, I turn our program over to my colleague, Mark Hall.
Thank you, Elizabeth, and good afternoon, everybody. I would like to briefly remind everybody about the benefits of reimbursable agreements. There are three broad benefits that can be considered as helping APHIS deliver its mission and remain flexible over the coming years. There is support, primarily financial, but also through the general recognition and desire to create agreements with APHIS and enter into partnerships that can be provided by APHIS's skill sets. Capacity building is a matter of developing expertise both internal and external and furthering staff development in technical, administrative, and diplomatic competencies. And leadership in agriculture. The watchwords are trade and preparedness. APHIS's expertise and partnerships can help open doors to future opportunities. Agricultural leadership can be promoted through good and expert service, and such service can trigger interest and faith in other aspects of U.S. agriculture, to include trade and access to knowledge that provides for future planning and preparedness. Forewarned is forearmed. In a time of decreasing federal dollars, but with increasing demands for APHIS's skills, reimbursable agreements provide a vital nexus in the current global environment as growing movements of agricultural products and the efforts to create new markets increases the potential for new threats to American agriculture. APHIS personnel are skilled veterinarians, epidemiologists, entomologists, plant health specialists, and wildlife biologists with regulatory knowledge and expertise. The combination of specialized skills and regulatory experience is not easily found in the private sector. As FAS interviewee mentioned, it is the epidemiology and plant science knowledge combined with government practitioner that is sought after. These skills are desired by foreign governments, by our federal partners in the DoD, DTRA, and the United States Agency for International Development. All are interested in enhancing their mission with support from APHIS's unique skill sets, as well as supporting the United States government's broader missions of maintaining peace, supporting democracy, and developing and growing economic partnerships. Reimbursable agreements can provide financial flexibility, that is, of course, free up appropriated dollars or fill the gaps by dollars lost, increase financial accountability, and discrete project management that is focused on results and deliverables. The structure and content of reimbursable agreements can help define mission parameters, enhance and support United States government and global initiatives to ensure that American agriculture remains safe and valuable. Numerous benefits could be lost if these agreements are dismissed as something inconvenient due to administrative burdens or processes. There are clear benefits and justifications for reimbursable agreements, as well as tangible outcomes such as improved disease surveillance, cross-cultural negotiations, and long-term planning. Leveraging reimbursable funds provides opportunities for developing the capacity and capability of foreign agricultural systems, and for APHIS to continue developing the required expertise to assist others and maintain its institutional knowledge. In order to safeguard the high agricultural standards within the United States, APHIS pushes out a virtual border by investing in and supporting international capacity building. This investment provides training programs to enhance technical, administrative, and diplomatic skills and competencies. The use of external funding to develop local expertise overseas is of benefit to APHIS as it creates a reservoir of on-site expertise, helps spearhead the necessary development of infrastructure by our current and future partners, as well as developing and enhancing the required agricultural protections to the standards the United States desires. It is important that institutional knowledge is maintained and there are experts on staff to facilitate capacity building. The ability to use an APHIS employee to assist other countries with their agricultural pests, diseases, and regulatory processes provide the opportunity to keep employees and APHIS aware of ongoing, renewed, or emergent threats to U.S. agriculture. With APHIS maintaining a successful record protecting U.S. agriculture, it becomes less likely that future generations of agricultural professionals will know what to look for or what they are even looking at, resulting in renewed threats. For example, screwworm has been eliminated from the United States and Central America, though the pest remains in parts of South America and Caribbean countries, thus leaving the possibility for future outbreaks. The ability to interact with the actual threat in a real setting outside the borders of the United States provides vital experience to APHIS personnel. By providing inventive leadership in American agriculture, APHIS can continue leading from the front. The use of interagency agreements is a tool that is well suited for leveraging small investments into new potent programs, requests for future appropriations, or maintenance of small but highly productive services. That is, agreements that are more technical in nature, but providing specific training or expertise by small teams or an individual who is an expert in his or her field. Reimbursable agreements should be considered force multipliers, the results significantly larger than the size of the initial investment, as seen by efforts by ITRCB's capacity building. Also, the development and facilitation of trade. External funding agreements provide an opportunity to develop networks and relationships that can facilitate trade. With long-term strategic planning, doors open through successful and supportive capacity building can be developed and capitalized on by APHIS, USDA, and the United States government as a whole. Also, emergency planning and preparedness. Experience gained in relationships built with foreign cooperators allow APHIS to obtain knowledge on existing or emerging threats to U.S. agriculture. This increased awareness leads to the agencies taking preventative steps to mitigate the risk of introduction of foreign pests and diseases, as well as to better plan and prepare outbreak response activities. Overall, the idea of a productive reimbursable agreement can be summed up in the adage, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And now my colleague, Mr. Glenn Germain.
Thanks very much, Mark. I'm going to discuss a few examples of the options APHIS has to recover costs under reimbursable agreements. Interagency agreements allow APHIS to leverage its authorities and competencies and help fulfill its mission. The Economy Act allows federal agencies to share resources and achieve common goals, and this law provides agencies latitude for identifying direct costs. The following examples show how APHIS provides services for other agencies and the options that are available to recover costs. In the first example, International Services details a veterinarian to the U.S. Trade Representative, USTR. IS feels that this experience will help the employee become a more skilled trade negotiator for APHIS. As a result, it does not charge USTR salaries or benefits. In example 2, Veterinary Services sends technical experts to Ukraine to deliver an epidemiology workshop. APHIS is reimbursed for the employee's travel costs, but does not recover salary, benefits, or some overhead. APHIS uses this experience to learn more about Ukraine's animal health infrastructure and enhance its animal health safeguarding capabilities. And in the third example, a Department of Defense agency requests APHIS to train foreign national veterinarians in animal disease diagnosis. APHIS charges overhead plus all direct costs. APHIS helps create a cadre of trained foreign veterinarians able to detect animal disease events, which also strengthens its ability to protect American agriculture. Although both sides benefit from this collaboration, APHIS is also able to recover all costs generated from delivering the courses. I'm now going to describe a reimbursable project that currently takes place in Pakistan as a case study. I'd like to draw everyone's attention to the upper right-hand photo, which shows our ALDP colleague, Dr. David Ashford. Reimbursable agreements fully support the APHIS presence in Pakistan and fund projects as part of overall U.S. government support there. Project objectives include building national animal and plant health infrastructure in Pakistan, improving the sanitary and phytosanitary status of Pakistan's agricultural products, improving U.S. and Pakistani market access and increasing agricultural exports from Pakistan, and supporting the U.S. government's Enhanced Partnership with Pakistan Act. In the APHIS Strategic Plan, Goal 3 mentions expanding opportunities to develop and trade safe agricultural products. APHIS works with foreign governments to prevent the spread of high-risk pests and diseases. The agency strengthens U.S. safeguarding by working with foreign governments, especially in developing countries, to improve their capacity to detect and respond to pests and diseases at their origin. Doing this helps preempt the global spread and potential introduction of these pests and diseases into the U.S. APHIS works with the government of Pakistan to provide technical consultations and oversight on all USDA agricultural projects in country. APHIS provides one animal health expert and one plant health expert on one-year assignments to provide subject matter expertise. And the activities include developing distance learning modules with Texas A&M University and the Center for Agricultural Bioscience International, administering a foot-and-mouth disease progressive control program with the UN's Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, developing an FMD laboratory information management system with Pakistan's National University of Science and Technology, and overseeing ARS crop protection projects and an FAS water resource management project. In this year, APHIS will receive over $700,000 in direct reimbursements and $500,000 in other support, and will oversee over $2 million in agricultural project funds. As a result of this project, Pakistan plans to liberalize regulations on U.S. beef imports. APHIS has also improved technical relations with its Pakistani counterparts, and our involvement has raised the agency's profile as international experts on sanitary and phytosanitary issues. And finally, this project supports the President's goal to lead Pakistan towards more stability and sustainability. On a more personal level, this experience provides APHIS employees hands-on learning opportunities in diplomacy, innovation, cross-cultural management, and overcoming challenges in developing countries. In these photos, PPQ employee Ian Winborn is seen on the left, and IS employee and our project liaison, Jessica Mahalingappa, appears on the right. I'd now like to introduce our teammate Patrick McFall, who will conclude our presentation.
Thank you very much, Glenn. So now that we have your gears turning, what are we wanting from APHIS? Based on the data collected, this team recommends that APHIS policy direct programs to work towards increasing reimbursable agreements that fully recover costs from partners where APHIS has unique expertise. This recommendation requires that APHIS become more entrepreneurial and nimble, in marketing its unique skill set by pursuing reimbursable agreements. Some actions that support achieving this recommendation follow. Now, you may be asking, how do we do this? What do we believe APHIS needs to do? We believe that APHIS should issue clear policy guidance reinforcing and clarifying APHIS's legal ability to receive and retain outside funding. We also believe APHIS should create a change leadership team comprised of representatives from each program within the agency. This team should communicate the associated benefits of reimbursable agreement activities that will, one, increase trade opportunities, increase APHIS's reputation globally, and strengthen APHIS's infrastructure to respond to exotic pests and diseases. Leaders up and down the chain must be encouraged to see the value, understand the process, and strategically engage in and implement reimbursable agreements. We also believe that APHIS should seek mechanisms to market our unique skill set of scientific subject matter experts and regulatory professionals. We believe we should review emerging process improvements for expanded use. Some recommended improvements are initiating agreements directly with foreign entities, pursuing departmental level of memorandums of understanding and umbrella agreements. Continue your support for the ITRCB staff embedded in FAS. Review increasing the scope of the Wildlife Service Authority for reimbursable agreements to other APHIS programs. APHIS should also be creative in showcasing the diversity of our accomplishments and our employee contributions. This can be accomplished by using the Inside APHIS newsletter as recommended earlier and the Secretary's USDA blog to tell stories as suggested as well. Identify and visibly support the increased capacities developed in our APHIS employees. A simple way to do that may be through an award of some type. A more substantial way may be require APHIS to develop career opportunities to retain expert personnel. We should also enhance training for our field-level staff in cost recovery and agreement monitoring. The Agreement Services Center in the Financial Management Division of MRPBS is the most likely source to provide this type of training. We should ensure communication pathways supporting agreements are functional and maintained. For our technical experts and administrative staffs to ensure any change of rules or procedures are clear. And with our TNA, our time and attendance clerks and administrative staff, assuring that obligated funds are used and accounted for properly. And finally, we should keep that pathway open to our external entities to ensure we are following the statements of work and are aware of any operational changes. The team further recommends that APHIS should continue to partner with external entities through reimbursable agreements to achieve our mission-related goals. We don't believe we should question whether we should enter into these agreements. We believe that we should ask how best to use these agreements. We hope that this project report will serve as a springboard for future discussions aimed at increasing APHIS's ability to leverage external funding sources in this day and age. Putting this puzzle together for us was not extremely easy, but there were a lot of people that were involved, and we'd really like to take a moment to thank them. We'd like to start with our project liaison, Jessica Mahalangapa, who gave us the puzzle and gave us a picture of what we thought the puzzle should look like at the end. Our next thanks goes out to our executive coach, Emily Poland. Emily was the rudder to our ship and kept us on that path when we started to head towards the rocks. We can't leave out two people that rode with us through the whole trip, our learning assistants, Gary Mitchell and Brooke Diver, or the full ALDP staff itself. We'd also like to give a hearty thanks to the individual programs who are completely and instrumental in our success in this project, and without their assistance, we would have never had been possible for us to get where we are today. Finally, I'd like to take a moment to add a special thanks to my teammates and their families who put up with our late hours and our weekends to complete this project. This concludes our presentation today. We'd like to open the floor up for questions and remind you that we have the Q&A session down below your screen. Please put your questions in there, and now I turn it over to Glenn Germain to field our questions for us.
Thanks very much, Pat. We're just waiting to see the questions as they appear. Okay, very good. Well, actually, our first question comes from our project liaison, Jessica Mahalingapa. Her question is, where will your recommendations go next? And thanks, Jessica, for that question. That's something that we've discussed as well in our group. We were hoping that there could be a discussion, perhaps at the PLG level, or possibly in another forum. And we would like to see some formal discussion around this topic, and hopefully that can happen soon. Okay, another question we have is from Carlise Kelly. Her question is, what are some examples of how the coach helped your team? I'll take a shot at answering this, and we'll call on my colleagues if they would like to add anything as well. I think for me it was helpful to have some additional context, maybe more of an agency-wide context for some of the questions that we were struggling with. It was also helpful for us to receive specific direction as we were preparing our paper and our slides as well. And I believe that we were also helped in some areas with some of the nuances and perhaps some of the political savvy as well. And I don't know if any of the other teammates would like to add anything.
Hi, Glenn. It's Kelly. I'll add a few comments to build off of what you said. I think Emily also helped us tremendously because she was able to provide real-life experience, and she had been through the ALDP and kind of knew where some of the pitfalls and internal struggles with working in a team environment spread out across the country. By explaining those to us and warning us that we were going to see these pitfalls as we progressed through the 7 months working on the project. Again, and she also helped us by reviewing the paper and the PowerPoint, and as Glenn mentioned, pointing out some of the political savvy issues we may come across on this potentially controversial topic.
Glenn, this is Pat. I think I'd like to add on to what Kelly just said. I mean, Emily, even her first visit with us was instrumental in guiding us and telling us that the best way to approach this was truly as a project and to bring it into a project type of scope and being and make sure we stayed focused that way. So, I mean, that was extremely instrumental in helping us continue forward in the path we were taking.
Great. Okay. Well, thanks. Okay. Our next question is from Beverly Simmons. Her question is, what mechanism do you suggest for the development of the policy statement? And this is the statement that we mentioned in our presentation of an endorsement for furthering these reimbursable agreements. We discussed this a bit as well, and perhaps one way to do this would be if the agency were to create this change management team around this particular issue, perhaps there could be a white paper presented to either to the PLG or perhaps to the EIC, to the Executive International Committee, for further discussion and consideration. And I don't know, teammates, if you have any other comments on that? Okay. We have another question from Carlo Broglio, and his question is, how do you separate regulatory issues from the paid services issues? I'm not sure that we separated the two issues, actually. I think a lot of what we saw in the reimbursable agreements and the projects had a regulatory aspect as well as a technical aspect. So to be honest, we didn't necessarily separate out those two areas. And again, I'll call on the teammates if they would like to add anything to that.
Glenn, this is Elizabeth. I'm not sure I understand the question completely, but if you're speaking to concerns about the ethics of some of the agreements, that is part of the process of putting the agreements in place is an ethical review, and if there is some question, then it does go up to legal counsel for review to determine. So, you know, if that's the gist of the question, I hope that answers it.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Liz. We have a follow-up question from Beverly Simmons, and she would like to know who specifically would compose the change management team that we had mentioned earlier. And to be honest, I'm not sure that we discussed the particulars around this. And I'm not sure, teammates, if you would like to chime in on this one.
Glenn, this is Pat. I'm not quite sure whether Beverly is asking who would put the team together or who would be on the team itself. But I do believe that we mentioned in our report that it should be comprised of members of every program within APHIS, BRS, WS, VS, MRPBS, so that it was an equal sharing across the board. And as was mentioned in, I believe it was Kelly's aspect of our report, I mean, animal care would like to get into it. They weren't doing any now, so you know, it would be a way of, for some of our programs that aren't possibly using it at all or to its fullest extent, to be able to gain knowledge and breadth from those others that are.
Right. Yes. Thanks, Pat, for that. Thank you. Okay. We have another question from Dr. Steve Weber, and he's asking if there were any drawbacks to the increased involvement of APHIS personnel in these areas which will need to be addressed in order to obtain support for moving forward. And Dr. Weber, if I understand your question, we did identify some drawbacks. I think one of them was that as these subject matter experts are deployed on these short-term reimbursable assignments, there was often a concern expressed by some of our interviewees on how to cover the ongoing work in the home office while those experts were deployed to various assignments. And I believe you may have touched upon that when we interviewed you, and some others did as well. And I think another drawback, maybe on a more organizational level, is that it wasn't always clear as we were conducting these interviews if the employees, as they returned to their home office, if they were given opportunities to use the new skills that they had acquired in some of these assignments. So we saw that as an organizational drawback as well. And teammates, would you like to add anything on that one?
I think just to a little more on that, Glenn, is yes, and one of the ideas that we did here in discussing this gap that was produced by these people being committed elsewhere was being able to backfill some of these positions, being able to hire temporary staff that maybe they couldn't fill the subject matter expertise, but they could fill in other areas that would then make it not quite such a hardship on the programs that had committed these resources.
Yes, that's right. Thanks, Liz. And that's an authority that I know some agencies have, and would be interesting to see if APHIS could acquire that particular authority.
Okay, I I know that there are several other questions in the Q&A pod, and all of us are APHIS employees, so if we were unable to answer your question, please feel free to email them to us, and we can further answer those questions as a group later on.
Okay. If we have time for another question, there is one from Dr. Larry Granger, and he's asking if there are areas that stand out to us as low-hanging fruit in programs that could serve as first forays for an APHIS all-type effort to demonstrate the mutual benefit, or do we see this as each program initiating its respective initiative in this area? Yes. Well, we've certainly had a lot of communication with the ITRCB staff, and I think some of the projects that they've recently been involved with, and for example, the one in Pakistan that we mentioned, as well as the one that Roberto Pantaleon is involved with in Haiti, would seem to be good, I think, good examples. And talking for a minute about demonstrating mutual benefit, we had hoped perhaps in the sharing of success stories agency-wide to hopefully create more of a consciousness among all programs, all agency programs, and that would also help raise awareness again throughout agency and maybe in the department as well. So we see this more as a collective project, more than just perhaps having each program initiate respective projects in their areas.
So let me take a pause right there and let us kind of move forward. I want to first off thank the Purple team for a job well done and congratulate you guys. And let me kind of move to the next piece in this format, which is introducing the project liaison, Ms. Jessica Mahalagapa. I hope I pronounced that correctly, as well as the executive coach, which is Dr. Emily Poulin. So Jessica, if you'd like to provide some remarks to the Action Learning Project team.
Yeah, sure. Good morning, everybody. My remarks are mostly about the substance of the project, since I wasn't as engaged with the whole leadership program and don't even know personally some of the team members. This is really about what the substance of the project was about. I think the team members had mentioned that these reimbursable agreements are really important to ITRCB. We have used them, and we have also kind of felt the frustrations of not having a coherent policy in APHIS. And I think, though, moving forward, that they could be really important for the agency. These days, we're hearing more and more about budget cuts, and it's kind of forcing everybody to look closely at how we're doing our business, and that's kind of pushed us toward better collaboration. And so, could be the side benefit, assuming that this budget situation isn't endless, that one day we will have our own money again. But nonetheless, it's opened up some doors for us. Right now, the reimbursements just for international capacity building alone have supported about 12 staff years over the last couple of years per year from the funding that we've brought in addition to the activities that we've managed to do. And
these days it's substituting for APHIS resources, whereas a couple of years ago we might have used our own funds to put into it. But it could actually, in the future, maybe improve or enhance the APHIS mission. And some examples, kind of looking ahead at projects that we are either in the middle of or just initiating, are the work on One Health. APHIS is just beginning to, I mean, I know that many people have put years of effort into this, but beginning to kind of come up with a plan of how to look at One Health across the United States with states, with other municipalities, and from a federal perspective. But now we're getting international interest, and this has kind of pushed us to talk more, to collaborate more, because of the potential for reimbursable funds. And I think that's anytime people are communicating more, whereas we might have done things in our own stovepipes before reaching out, I think is a good thing. Another is one of the examples that Glenn gave, and I wanted to highlight that, you know, part of that Pakistan project is coming up with a distance education program, and so we're working with the university and with CABI, and that particular project and the efficiencies that that they're demonstrating for how we can provide international training that has a longer sustainability and uses fewer resources, so less travel, kind of concentrating some efforts up front, but also putting together a product that'll be usable down the road, I think is a way that maybe, you know, we're benefiting from being forced to, you know, to listen a little bit more when some of our, you know, other USG partners have asked us for assistance. Maybe where in the past we would have said, well, we'll kind of do maybe just what we're interested in. In a way, it puts us into an awkward situation, but there are some potential benefits of this, you know, this increased collaboration across the USG. But yeah, that's pretty much what I had to say. But I just I really encourage making sure that the recommendations don't get lost. I think many people are kind of waiting to see what comes out of this project. I know at least people that I'm talking to, I think putting it before the PLG or the EIC in the very near term would be really helpful, particularly as we're talking about additional budget cuts and which will cause pain to many programs across the agency over the next several months.
Thank you, Jessica. And let me turn it over to the executive coach now, Dr. Emily Pullins.
Thank you so much, Craig. Congratulations, Team Purple, on a job very well done. I really want to extend my congratulations to you and my thanks for your hard work. I just wanted to share with everybody that some of the things that the team, I observed them go through, where I thought that they did an exceptional job. They definitely excelled in their competencies associated with leading others and leading organizations. I watched them coordinate their work efforts collectively using project management tools and techniques, which included coordinating and identifying their goals, objectives, tasks, and milestones. They explored the project, which was quite complex and I think of a significant scope, in an organized, coordinated, and stepwise fashion, carefully coordinating with their sponsor to clarify and agree on the objectives of their project at the earliest stage. This early effort really paid out in the design and conduct of their interviews and the subsequent analysis that resulted. They adapted well to significant challenges that they faced in establishing and clarifying their roles within their team. I watched them adjust their expectations and their tasks based on some pretty significant logistical challenges in conducting the project. And they really adjusted during their project. They had preliminary interviews that then they did some preliminary evaluation on, and that helped them to conduct additional rounds of interviews to collect necessary information. And And they handled those adjustments in their project well and in a timely fashion. I also watched them work through differences in their personal styles, their different areas of expertise, and in their accessibility issues. Some of these folks were at quite a distance, and they managed that situation very well. Each member strove to ensure that they participated to the greatest extent of their ability, and they completed their milestones and outcomes within the time frames that they had set for themselves. I thought that a key part of your success, Team Purple, in this regard was your ability to assess and share with each other your strengths and your weaknesses in a very frank way, a very open way. And you worked through those, I thought, in a constructive and transformational way. You frequently solicited input from your team members and from your partners and people that you were working with through the project, and you gracefully and thoughtfully incorporated the feedback that you received. I was particularly impressed with the team's recommendations at the end of the project as they focused on reimbursable agreements. These recommendations did come out of your analytical work. They were informed by the research that you had accomplished. And these recommendations to me are very much in alignment with APHIS's movement towards encouraging and exploring innovative approaches to meet our mission objectives. We are certainly at a moment where we need to start thinking differently about how to accomplish our work. We need to be innovative and creative. And I particularly appreciated your recommendations that involved transforming the culture of APHIS, not only technically, but adaptively to realize the recommendations that you had made. I thought this was a good beginning to a bigger creative endeavor to look at some new sources of funding for APHIS, and also looking at some of the benefits that we might get out of that we had not previously considered. When we do that cost-benefit analysis, we need to make sure we're not just looking at the money we might get, but some of the bigger value gains that we can accomplish in our organization. Keep those in mind as we have these future discussions. So good work. Congratulations, you've made it, and I hope that you will take on the challenge of continuing to be involved with ALDP in the future as I have. It's a very rewarding experience. I thank you for making my role in this so enjoyable, and I appreciate the opportunity.